Hi guys, it's Stephanie with the Missoula County Weed District, and I'm out today on what would be our field trip up on Mount Jumbo. And I really wish we could be out this year, but the circumstances make it that we're not able to do so. But we live in such a great place that you can come out here on your own and take your own opportunities to discover things. So we're going to teach you a few native flowers today, and maybe some of the noxious weeds we talked about, and learn how to identify all the wonderful flowers that are out here. There's always a couple of rules that I like to go over when using our trails, and they're pretty simple rules. We just need to learn to follow them. And one is we always typically should stay on the trail. The trails are there so that we don't cause destruction on either side of the trail. And typically when we go hiking, we like to go with friends, and this is how it starts, is we like to walk side by side, and that's super great if the trail is wide enough to do so. But when there is a single track trail, it's really important that we walk single file and not cause that destruction on either side of the trail, because destruction in my business equals noxious weeds. Okay, here's another thing we're going to talk about. When we identify a lot of plants, especially the native plants, I really strongly recommend that we observe them where they are without picking them. Without picking native plants, without taking a rock home with us, without taking that favorite stick home. This stuff is in nature for everyone to enjoy, so just leave it where it is. So again, everyone can see it, everyone can enjoy it, and it all stays natural. Here's something that really gets my goat when I'm out hiking, especially when the arrowleaf balsam root is flowering. Everyone loves them so much they want to pick them and take them home. But what typically happens with arrowleaf balsam root is they wilt within minutes of picking. So come over here and look at what I found today on my hike. Destruction! This makes me super sad, guys, because look, the sole purpose of this little guy, this little flower here, besides to make me happy, is to make a new seed. So it can't make a new seed because somebody picked it, it wilted, and it lost all its will to live. So here it is on the side of the trail. So again, let's just learn to enjoy them where they are. Hi, I want to talk a little bit about leafy spurge because it's a prominent noxious weed here in Missoula County. It begins to bloom late May, early June, and you really notice it on Mount Jumbo or the L Mountain. And it's that greenish yellow flower, and it's not a real substantial plant, not very big. It gets about this tall. But the funny thing about a non-substantial plant is its capability. When it's an invasive species, it has characteristics that can, of course, take over an area. And this, what I want to show you, is an example of what the root system leafy spurge can put down. So a leafy spurge plant, when having the right soil conditions, is capable of putting down up to 26 feet deep roots. And this little chart here is a replica of an actual leafy spurge plant that was found in Montana, and it indeed went 26 feet deep. Can you see how a plant that's capable of this is all the taller it gets, putting down a 26-foot deep root? That's something we think a tree does. This little plant does that, so it's capable of taking up all the soil nutrients and the moisture from the ground before our native plants can. So now we're going to go down and look at a real leafy spurge. They aren't yet blooming, and it's kind of hard to see here in this prairie grassland, but here is an example of what leafy spurge looks like right now. Very insignificant, kind of hard to identify. Oftentimes confused with other plants, like this one here. This is a native plant. This is leafy spurge. So I like to show people how, without pulling the plant, we can identify leafy spurge. So if you went over to this leafy spurge plant and you break off its leaf, it will emit a milky juice, or it's a latex. And that's a great indicator that you have leafy spurge. So now on my mistaken identity, native plant, I'm going to do the same. Pull off a leaf, no milky juice. So that's a great way to identify this if you're unsure. I will let you know this latex can be an eye irritant, so it's good to not get it in your eyes. So why do we have leafy spurge so bad? Again, it's that root system. So it's not an ideal candidate for hand pulling, like our other species like spotted knapweed or houndstooth. And I'm going to pull this one to show you why. What happens when we go to pull leafy spurge is, and I'm a really good weed puller, it breaks off, and it's very frustrating, okay? And for some plants, that's enough stress to kill it. But with leafy spurge, I'm going to show you why, back over on this chart, why this doesn't injure this plant. So again, it's very frustrating. I tried to pull this, it breaks off. Again, it doesn't do much damage to the actual leafy spurge plant by just breaking off the top. If we look again at the significant root system, what I've done is broken it off right about ground level. Well, what this root system does is it knows, hey, my photosynthesis processing parts are gone, and in order to sustain life, I need to put up new plants. So when we look at our leafy spurge root, we notice these red root nodes all over. And those little red root nodes stimulate new growth when I try to hand pull this leafy spurge. So trying to pull spurge oftentimes increases the infestation. And that milky juice that we saw from the plant when I pulled the leaf off, that seeps down on this root system and acts as a growth hormone to speed up the growth. So this plant has a ton of invasive characteristics, and that's why it can do so well here in its non-native environment. Hi guys, so now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the noxious weeds that are out here, and one in particular that you and I can do something about. And some call it our unofficial state flower, and that would be spotted knapweed. And I want you to be able to identify it. So a really simple way to identify it, and maybe you can see behind me here are the old dead stalks that are left from them each year. And the reason this is bad is because potentially all these little seed heads have seeds left in them. So as we move around, they can be spread more easily. But this one is a weed that we can easily control by hand pulling, but come down and look close so you can learn to identify it when it's not flowering, because it does not flower until late summer. Okay, so if you look down at this rosette, you'll notice that it has very long lobed leaves, and they of course do not all look the same. Each knapweed can have a little bit different looking leaf, so that might be a little confusing, but once you key in on that really deeply lobed, sort of a silvery green color, noxious weed characteristic of spotted knapweed, you'll learn to control it. And again, if you're not sure, my first rule is don't pull it, but this is a good indicator that you have spotted knapweed. It's good to say, if we aren't sure about the weed we're pulling, maybe just leave it until you are positive, because we don't want to pull something beneficial. Okay, I'm going to show you the proper way to pull spotted knapweed. Notice that I'm wearing gloves. You don't have to, but often spotted knapweed leaves your skin itchy. So my friend Sawyer over here is going to demonstrate how to properly remove this plant. Sawyer, let's work on, how about this one? So the best way to do this, to me, is we don't want to waste our energy and we don't want to dig a hole. We want very little knowledge that we've been here pulling this plant. So Sawyer's going to gather up all the leaves in his hand so that he can see that his tool here, that is designed to go straight down in the ground and pry like a bottle cap opener, to loosen this root. And by holding on to the plant like this, you can actually feel when your tool is loosening your actual plant's root. So that way it's helpful too. And so what you want to do is just loosen the soil all around until you can effectively, and I heard that fabulous sound of the root cracking, one of my favorites. I'm an odd person though. Let's see what we got. Oh, we got our taproot out, and guess what? It didn't all come out, and we should not be mad about that. That's the good thing about spotted knapweed, is that if you get about 2 inches of that root out of the ground, that plant's done for, it's dead. So it differs from leafy spurge, who can handle being broken off. Okay, so Sawyer was effective at getting this out of the ground. What I forgot to show you, and what I think is so important, is I want you to look at where it came from. So here's the little area where Sawyer pulled this plant from. Notice we left this good grass, we left these cute little flowers still here, and that's how you effectively remove something. Little disturbance, you hardly know you were there. Here's another thing to know. If you're out on a trail and you just want to be helpful and pull spotted knapweed, if this is not flowering, you're okay to pull it and just leave it on the ground, because it will not be able to produce its seeds. So you can feel comfortable just leaving it down there if it's not flowering. if we were out for our Leave No Weeds program, you guys would have pulled and had a contest for the longest root or the fattest root. And then we would have followed that up by reseeding with the native grass and flower seeds that you see up and around Mount Jumbo. And Sawyer's gonna demonstrate how very little is needed in an area like this for revegetation. And we like to tap them down just because the mice and the birds will really enjoy them as much as we will growing. So that's how you can help out when you're out hiking if you see spotted knapweed.
Hey guys, so I'm going to introduce you to another invasive plant. So this is called hound's tongue, and this is the rosette right here. The way you can identify hound's tongue is that by its name, right? A lot of these plants kind of are named because they look like something. You can notice how it's kind of velvety and soft, and it's very veiny as well. And you can think of it kind of like a hound's tongue to identify it. It's also a biennial, which means that the first year that it grows, it's going to look like this. It'll be in the rosette stage. And the second year, it will start growing its seeds over here. Now these seeds are very, very sticky. So if you're just walking through it like this, and then you come away, you'll end up with these seeds attached to your clothing. It's amazing how many of these you can collect really quickly. So if you get some on you, don't just pick them off and flick them. You're planting an invasive weed. What you can do is you take that seed and then break it in half. Now it's not viable and it won't grow into a plant. Put it down. Or if you can't do that, you can also put it in your pocket for later. Because this plant, the first year, looks like this. This is a plant that we can remove with our hands. And underneath, there's a large taproot. It looks something like this. So this is something we can pull up by hand. And hopefully at some point, we can get you guys out in the field and we can pull these up together.
Hey guys, I want to show you a casualty of the filmmaker when she was videoing our hound's tongue episode. Oh no! She's got them stuck all over. She's not going to pick and flick though. We're going to pick them and throw them in the garbage, aren't we? Thanks for your help, Madeline.
Thanks, Stephanie.